Hey everybody, Rob here. Saturday, August 14th marked the end of At the Movies, which started out as Siskel and Ebert and the Movies in 1986, although the two of them did other versions of movie review shows dating back to 1975. So I decided to talk about my thoughts as I was watching the very last episode, which had Michael Phillips and A.O. Scott. Now the show airs on Saturday nights in my market, and I was by the TV and I was ready to watch the show, and I was thinking I was watching a piece of TV history. If you think about it, most movie review shows are gone now, and this was one of the last of them. Now I remember when Phillips said at the beginning of that last episode that this was the last episode, I did feel kind of a few pings here. I noticed when I was watching the show the two were dressed the same and thought that was a pretty nice touch. And the first movie they reviewed was Eat, Pray, and Love with Julia Roberts. And I noticed that the two did a more energetic argument. Instead of just sitting there and talking, they really fought for their opinions more, I think, than they did in the past year. Phillips gave it a skip it, and A.O. Scott gave it a see it. And I felt that in the past year, whenever they were split on a movie, they were just too calm. From what I remember, I never saw them rise to the Siskel and Ebert level of argument where they were shouting at each other. I mean, they didn't hit that level that night, but they seemed more into it there. And when they talked about the Expendables, Phillips also gave that a skip. And one of the reasons he gave it were these. Now, I've never seen the movie as of now, but there's these close-ups that he did a very funny impression with. Apparently that was one of the things he didn't like about it, and he did this really awesome impression of it. If you missed it, I'm sure it's going to be on the show's website. Now, I don't know if it was me, but the reviews seemed to be shorter, and they were fast, like they were done in a rush. I mean, I felt like they didn't take their time as usual. Maybe they wanted to devote more time to the tribute that came on later in the show, which I'm going to talk about next. Phillips said that when it was time to say goodbye, I knew the show just had a few minutes of life left, and they started the tribute with the old Siskel and Ebert opening, which I was thrilled to see because I hadn't seen it in years, and I thought the production team got very good clips from the Siskel-Ebert era, and we got a bit from the Roper era, and they kind of zipped past the two Bens, although they did mention them in passing with one clip. I really liked the story Phillips told on how the show talked about smaller independent films and foreign films, because that's how I felt. I mean, I would not have heard a lot of these films or tried to find them on video or DVD if it wasn't for the show. I would never have even heard of them, especially when they only played in a limited release in major cities and never really came over into my area with that would kind of play with the more bigger movies, although that's kind of changed now. Every once in a while, for those of you that have watched this channel for a while, you know that once in a while we do get an independent film, but they usually stay for about a week or two and then they get pulled. I think now most of these films will probably fall into the cracks again. Maybe if I keep an eye out on what's coming out and they mention a movie I don't remember seeing a trailer for, maybe I'll see that. I did enjoy Scott and Phillips' final thoughts, and their handshake, I really smiled at. And I thought they made a very good team, and I think that if they had stayed on longer, they would have found their chemistry. I remember it took a bit before Roper and Ebert started clicking, and I'm sure Siskel and Ebert needed time to get it to work early when they started their stuff back in 1975. So, yeah, it's an end of an era, and but I gotta say it was a nice show, and I think if Scott and Phillips had been allowed to get into bigger arguments like they did in the last episode, I think they probably would have lasted longer, but who knows. So that's my thought on the last episode of At the Movies with A.O. Scott and Michael Phillips. So if you watched the show, go ahead and tell me your thoughts, and like I said, I'm sure this stuff will be on the show's website. Right now it's still up and running, and if you hadn't really seen the show, they got clips dating back to the Siskel and Ebert period, 86 onwards, so you can type in a movie and maybe they'll have a review from whoever was being a critic on the show at the time. So that's my thoughts, so go ahead and leave a comment if you have any, and take care now.